The time I judge them when somebody don't. Today, but we can think about those three things that I brought it, and we can start to work on those. So first thing is listening, not just listen with the ear, but with your heart. When they're talking to you, you're present in that moment. And I was reading about empathy, and there's so many studies about, they say, the psychologists say that we can really feel their pain if you want to. If you want to put yourself in their shoes, we can feel what they feel. But it's not easy. And we have to decide how prepared we are mentally and physically to feel somebody's pain, because I can go in that place and not be able to get out easily. So we have to go step by step. But listening is an amazing tool. When you listen, when you're present, when you're asking questions and you're not judging and you're not there just because they needed somebody, not just for the company, but you are there with your heart, is amazing how you can help anyone listen and not just there.
I believe we are losing our ability to listen because of the distractions we have, stimulus that we have from internet. We, the technology is teaching us to have this immediate mentality. I don't want the results now. I want this now. Just one click. Just, we have like, we are losing the ability to pay attention to listen because things are so fast. That's my point of view.
And listening is an instant gratification.
Exactly. Listening, beautiful what you said. Listening doesn't give me any gratification, at least immediately.
Yeah.
But it does.
And listen with your heart is go to another dimension, you know, when you feel that person and when you there. And also listen with your heart. That means that you're there, you listen, and you not compare your pain to them, because we can go to the same situation, you and Kara, but I can cope easily and her taking much longer. And if I compare, it's not fair. It's not going to help her. So my problems sometimes say that, oh, I went through that, helping my family, or this. Sometimes is worthless, like, because everybody's different. Everybody cope different. So have to be careful when you compare your pain and their other pain.
So how do you listen from your heart?
Listen from your heart is be present for me, for my own experience, to be present, be there with a person, and let those feelings. And you put your mind there. You imagine yourself in that situation, living that moment. For me, but everybody maybe for you can be different. But I think imagining yourself in that situation, it helps take you there, like in that time. The second is, like I was talking about, not comparing our pain to the others, is understanding. Understand what they're going through is very powerful when you put yourself there with your heart and listen and not compare. I think is amazing. And the last that I saw other day, and I've been doing for a couple of years, is volunteer. I started volunteering in a nursing home in Texas probably 10 years ago, in another Spiritist center that I used to go into this nursing home in a very, very poor community. And I used to go there to do their fingernails because they can't afford it. But it was much more than the fingernails. Going there and see those people and touch their hands and listen to their stories, and that connection was much more than the volunteer job. And that work gives me open my eyes that I want to be around those people. And after that, I got a job in assisted living. And I worked there for 2 years, and I was promoted to be managing the memory care because they thought I couldn't. I have more abilities and skills to work with the dementia Alzheimer patients. And it was incredible. I have amazing time. And through this volunteer job, that things kind of go, I went into that direction. And now I'm a nursing student, and I hope when I finish my education, go back to work with these seniors again with the dementia Alzheimer's. That was my passion right now. So volunteer, going a place that is completely different what you're doing right now from your work, from your family, your community, going a place that you see other people's reality, other people's challenges. Can be a nursing home, can be a shelter, can be in here. There's other jobs that we can do here. Or community centers, whatever you can be, feel yourself useful and be there for people that need you. Whatever you do can be everything. But if you're there with your heart, it means a lot. It's not just like I'm doing some hours to tell my friends that I'm volunteering. So not that. And this is my favorite one. As the old saying goes, do not judge a man until you have walk a mile in their shoes. So, not judge others. I think for myself, every day I struggle sometimes to not be judgmental. You know, we have so many people in the streets. Sometimes I go work 5 in the morning and see people there and say, oh my God, I'm going to work and this person is there, you know, like, but it's not my place. You know, I have to do what I know to do, what I have to do. Other people, they go to their own challenges. So not judging others is a big step to develop empathy and compassion.
Good question.
Go ahead.
So, like in the video you showed us, all of the people all had different stories of suffering. But we don't know what is the suffering someone is experiencing. What is the difference between the one who's 7 years on life support, the other one has cancer. We don't know what people's suffering is all the time. So how do we put ourselves, walk a mile in their shoes if we don't know their story?
Good question. I was talking to somebody this morning. They said the same thing. They say, how about if I knew their stories, I would change my approach. It's true. Sometimes I think it's easier if you know somebody open to you. You know, I'm going through this situation right now, and we listen. When you put yourself in there and open your hearts, it's helpful. But it's not all the time. I'm on the one, I don't like it, talk about my challenges, things I struggle, because I think other people's going through different and like harder than mine. I always try to minimize my struggles, but is not healthy, because I have to talk about, I have to discuss and go through. Go ahead.
Sorry. I wanted to piggyback on a couple of things you mentioned before. The volunteering thing, I think it's just so beautiful what you said, being
Thank you.
able to spend time with the elderly. Because I feel like we still live in a society where, as we get old, we kind of get dismissed.
Yeah.
Well, they're out, they're on their way out, and what we forget is they carry history. They can, tell you what they went through, but also tell you part of the world that was, that they were growing up in. And what you said about listening, I feel, and connected to the elderly, if you just listen and if you let them feel that they are heard, that they are still a living being, and that applies to everybody.
Yeah.
And listening is, what you're saying is listening from the heart. It's not just for you, but it's really to help them understand that they matter, that the fact that you're taking the time to open your heart to them, that they matter, no matter how they see the world. Like you said, how do you understand what they're really going through? And we saw in the example, one person is dealing with the horrible news where this other young man is finding out that he's about to be a father. But he can't even really rejoice in that joy because he doesn't know what other people in that elevator are going through. So the idea of this is just don't judge, because you really do not know what that person is. The experience would be identical, but because of my experience and because of my conditioning, I perceive that experience in such a much more horrible way than you may. But who is someone else to say that my perception is just wrong or bad? So long as, obviously I'm not going and literally harming, you can't judge, right? And the only way we can even judge the whole harming is because we want to live in a society where, people are not just going around and literally doing physical harm to each other. I don't want to take the whole platform, but I just felt that what you've been talking about, the video you showed us, and I also appreciated that video didn't, and no pun intended, didn't show children starving in Africa, like really horrifying things where you're like, well, have empathy. This is like real people that are literally walking around amongst you day to day, your teachers, your doctors, your nurses. I've been in, on the other side where I've expected things from nurses, but really not known that they have to go home to their children after being away for 12, 13 hours. And I think these experiences is what teach us to be more empathetic. Like, we realize that, you may think that your problem is this big problem, but then you see someone has not had any food at their table for 3 meals in a row, and all of a sudden not being able to go to the movies is just not, it's just trivial.
Yeah.
So, and that's, sorry, again, I'm just taking over.
Thank you for your input.
Empathy is just so tough, but so necessary.
Yeah, we can talk like years about empathy, but I think in more than talk about, we have to be aware in practice. Like every single steps until we get to the point that we can see others the way they are with their challenges and listen to their heart. Are you going to say something?
It's very similar to what they were saying. I think I catch myself that the more I judge is when something is unknown to me. I tend to judge more when I don't know something. We can know everything. Or we can with mental effort to say that I'm judging because I don't know. It's okay. There's a story behind it. We can think, we can start getting ourselves to have that thought whenever we encounter something that is unknown to us, and we're judging it. So it's not really that makes sense.
Yeah, meditate about before we judge how is that true what I'm going to say is the filter is kind is necessary. Business. so we can go from there. But like you said, if you don't know their story, this can be hard for you to help or say something or just be there.
I guess if we don't know what the incident's going to be, is we could just treat everyone as gently as we
Right.
are and just be open.
Yeah, that's simple and be very effective too.
I think the greatest challenge starts at home.
Yeah.
That's where we have to everyone who wants to have to exercise first, so everything else is gonna fall into place. I take that for my own challenge. It's hard because how many times I have said you should know better, and unfortunately, it's a daily exercise. Yep.
Yeah, I think in the gospel, in other books say that our spiritual plan, we are in that family because we accept, we agree to be there. So we have to go through those challenges for us to grow, to us to evolve. So yeah, the family is the first place for us to develop empathy to others, because the family member can be completely different than us. And we born and raised in the same house sometimes, but we go to different directions. So you're right.
I kind of add, just because you brought up the family, I also think if we believe that we're on this spiritual journey, I think the reason why we are faced with these challenges is, like you said, if we weren't, like, how would we grow? If everything was just so perfect, everything was just, it just fit the box, there will not be any need for us to think outside the box and allow our soul, any of us, to grow. I think the part of the growth is to learn to accept each other, like you said, and like you said, it starts at home because that's where we spend most of our time. Accepting each other's flaws, realizing why the universe brought us together, and trying to see if we're willing to grow together and work with it. But I think the challenges are necessary in life to be able to grow
Yeah.
as individuals.
It's not usual to find a family that are completely happy with each other, but it happens.
Oh, unless there's joyous moments. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree, and that's what keeps you wanting to fight for that, right? But I'm saying, I think we wouldn't grow unless we were. I think that a human being's true characteristics come out when you're faced with adversities, and that's when you realize, okay, and we make mistakes. We think we know how to deal with it until we realize that wasn't the case. But like you said, it starts at home. It starts with, there's a reason why you have this whole blood family versus the family that you create.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here today and to share all your ideas.